Pineapples.
Always pineapple.
Welcome everyone to the Captain's Table. My name is Paul Berserker01, Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender at the Astropub, your professor on the Astro Historian, and your moderator here at the Captain's Table podcast. As a reminder, those of you just joining us, you can also find us on Spotify and our new home, the Captain's Table Podcast, on YouTube. It's just at the Captain's Table Podcast. So make sure you check us out there. This is currently being broadcast live on twitch.tv/theastropub and on youtube.com/theastropub live. Though in the near future, like starting probably in March, I will be broadcasting exclusively this on the new channel. So if you want to continue following this, as you have been following this in the past and watching this live, make sure you watch us on the new channel at the Captain's Table Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, below on the link below, you'll see an at the Captain's Table Podcast. Like, so follow us there. If you click that link, it'll take you directly there, so you can subscribe there and be prepared. And that's where all the recordings and all that kind of stuff will be up there as well. So
if you're not already subscribed, what are you doing?
I don't know. Especially if you've been watching this a lot, because we've got a lot of the spicy takes have been bringing people in apparently. So,
and pineapples as well.
Yeah, pineapples.
Always pineapples.
You know that's actually a symbol, right? For that whole the whole thing you're talking about in the pre-show.
There's actually two reasons for pineapples.
Yes. Oh yeah. One of them is because it was used to be a wealthy thing, so only the wealthy could afford them. So
no,
they would rent them out.
Mine was.
I wonder when we can.
The other one,
dirtier.
No, I know the dirty one. That was the joke.
No. There's two dirty.
Two
ones.
dirty ones. Okay. Well, we're going to keep that on PC because we're still.
Okay, at least for the first 10 minutes.
Yes.
So so you appease the algorithm, and then we can go dirty.
The prisoner got it. It's at least one of them. All right. Well, with that being said, let's get started on introducing the cast members here today, and we'll be talking a little bit about Star Citizen Cubs. This is a Star Citizen podcast that I've been doing for 9 years now, and we'll start with Zark. Zark, who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? Where can they find you?
I'm Zark. I'm a simple player of Star Citizen. I'm an old school citizen, if you like to say so. Been through a lot of the draws, of the ups and downs, and yeah, you can find me on Paul's Discord, and when we are doing our lore expeditions to save the relics from unworthy hands.
Zark is, I will say that Zark is probably the most controversial person who's been on this podcast, next to Vertigo, and who's the other person? Everyone's like, I don't want to be here with it. They're talking. Somebody else, but yeah. So we're gonna.
Hey, I'm trying.
Darj used to be up there, but I think Darj is people like Darj now.
Who doesn't like Darj?
Yeah. You've won over the hearts of the folks. And Radar, who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? Where can they find you?
I am, as I usually say, I'm a self-professed Star Citizen uber nerd. I've been a backer since 2012. I'm just really into the game. I'm actually the CEO of a company called My Radar. We make a popular weather app here in the States. But the connection to Star Citizen is that way back in 2017, we did a collaboration with CIG where you could view the Star Citizen moons and planets in our app. So you could go to our app on your mobile phone and bring up like Yella and zoom around it. That's what Yella is right here on the hat. That was really kind of fun. I actually gave a talk at the 2017 Citizen Con that you can watch if you are so inclined. You can go on YouTube and look it up and watch it. Came after Ian Leyland's chat on the planet technology.
Ian Leyland, who's still there. He was the one who did the
yes.
the presentation, all the Beyond Pyro stuff. So
yeah, he moved on up in the world. Yeah, I saw him while I was out there for the convention, actually. You can find me on Blue Sky under A Green, and I'm also trying to work on a YouTube channel for some Star Citizen related content that I wanted to do. Nothing huge, but just spouting my mouth off. That's all.
We're in talks about some cool projects.
Nice.
Involving Star Citizen.
I will also say, if you haven't used My Radar, there's a couple people in there like, oh wait, I actually have been using that for 10 years. I started using it for the when the Star Citizen thing was announced, and it just never left my phone. It's very good. It has some of the best predictive technologies possible. Like if you are in a place that gets weather related events like snow or rain, and it kind of comes infrequently, if you're like I would like to know exactly when it rains so I won't get dumped on. Usually my radar is good within a couple of minutes to when the rain actually starts and stops. Better than Google in my experience.
It is very good, and I can brag about it because I did not make that component. That was one of the guys at the company, and he's very smart. So it is awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Darsh, Prince of Darionator, Prince of Pluto, Emperor of Uranus. Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? Where can they find you?
Hello, I am Darionator, and as previously mentioned, I have many honorifics. I primarily these days am chief modeler at JRDF. Currently not running on any projects right now. I'm between kits. We are because we're currently just running in the background trying to get the European store launched and the Raven, which was hopefully is launching on Valentine's Day for Coramore. But it's getting kind of late for that. Anyway, that's who I am. But
I'm doing 2 seconds. Yeah. If you can't make Coramore,
Darge made the Raven.
I made the Raven.
Yes,
we need to establish that.
Beginning to end. Yes, we have lots of plans for future kits, especially to coincide with the launch of Squadron 42. I don't know what we're gonna do. I'm sure you can make an educated guess.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were at CitizenCon, you probably already saw the prototype. Hint. But the most important thing is, I have a beer here, and I forgot a bottle opener.
He's gonna go get a bottle opener,
or you open it on the table.
No, I have. I don't want to crush my table, but I have two options.
Do you have
I have two options. I have the CitizenCon 2949 challenge coin, and I have my Star Trek badge. So I'm gonna try using one of these two, and I would like chat to decide which one.
Decide.
The coin is less likely to shatter.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Unfortunately, the brewery that does these has really, really hard caps. It's not just. I don't want to get up. It's very comfortable in this chair. So one of these two. All right, Q-Pan has decided.
Oh,
right.
I was do it.
You have a poll up?
I was about to, but you do it. Do it.
All right. Let's see.
Make Starfleet proud.
Oh,
there we go.
Kinda, yeah.
Almost. Quark would be proud. Quark would be proud.
There it is. Ow! Look what it did to my finger. You can because of the pixels, but holy fuck, these are hard. Anyway, cheers.
Cheers. All right, with that, let's talk a little bit about what the heck just happened to Andy?
That was me. Crap, how do I reset it?
You have a small Andy in a corner right now. You've heard of Elf on a Shelf.
Maybe shut it down and restart it?
Yeah, let me try that. It was a mistake. Hold on.
It keeps getting worse.
For those audio listeners, his entire video just is getting slowly smaller and smaller and be putting in the corner.
If I close the tab to the link and come back in, will that'll
yeah, it should help.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let me do that. Hold on. Alrighty then.
That hurt.
We'll wait for Andy to come back. But the topic for today, and there he is back. There we go.
Yay.
All right.
And make sure you mute on the app as well. So that.
The link should be chosen to no audio by default, so you're good.
Yeah. So the topic for today is crafting. CIG announced crafting at CitizenCon this last year. We've had versions of crafting in Star Citizen for about a year now, but it's been very basic. It's been mostly your multi-tool and then the different attachments for the multi-tool And that's it. I think there's really nothing else.
MedPen, I believe, as well.
You
Isn't
can
it?
get MedPen, maybe.
Yeah,
might
I think
be.
they added that recently.
So we've had a couple of those things that have been only attached to salvage ships. So the Reclaimer and the Vulture. I don't know if does the Fortune have one of those as well?
I haven't checked it out
You?
yet.
I'd assume it does. Chat may be able to help us, and if you hit this in the comments, please let us know. The chat's saying yes.
Chat says yes. Yeah.
Okay. So we have 3 crafting ships technically, but they are only for very limited. And the crafting that CIG displayed at CitizenCon was very, very extensive in comparison to what we have today. So I'd like to discuss for this episode. We're going to talk a little bit about what crafting is now. Is it good or bad? And as what is CIG proposed? Kind of how will this work based off of what we've seen? Is there any kind of examples of other games doing this sort of thing? What are things that CIG could fall into in terms of pits? And of course, the last question, does it even belong in the Star Citizen universe in playing the game? Does it add to the game? That sort of thing. So we'll start with right now, Darj, starting with you. What do we have now, and do you think it's good in your opinion that what we have as it exists?
Well, what we have right now, I'm guessing, is completely divorced from the underlying system they're about to introduce. And it's just like a little patch for, oh shit, I just went out in my Vulture with my, hospital sperm suit and I have 0 inventory with me, but I need it for, I need my tractor beam.
Yeah, to move boxes.
So,
yeah.
the very basic tool. So they added that just as a little Band-Aid, which for a Band-Aid, I guess it's good. But it also opens the door for, questions like, why can't we craft this bit? And why can't we craft this bit? And why is it only limited to these 3 things? So, yeah, in that regard, I say it's quite bad. But the plans are good.
Okay. We'll talk about that here in a moment.
I was very excited to what for what they showed off at CitizenCon.
Andy, same thoughts to you. What do we have now, and does it do you think it works? Is it good? Is it something that you should keep in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's clearly a placeholder.
Mm-hmm.
It's something there to kind of highlight what's going to be possible and give people. Is that me echoing? No, somebody else. Okay.
No, it's me because I can't chat and on the same thing, so I'm on a phone.
Okay. Yeah, they should absolutely leave it in. It was just kind of a placeholder to kind of whet everybody's appetite. I think it definitely had a need and a benefit. I mean, you can craft some of the tools. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it was something that they put in game and planned and put in game before they had really done all the work on exactly what they wanted their final formal crafting system to look like. So yeah, I think it's a good idea, and I think they should keep it in at least for now. And whenever they get to the point where they have a more formal crafting system in place, I hope they don't get rid of this. That functionality is there. It serves a purpose. Those basic tools that you can craft are handy. And if they leave that, in whatever it has to look like, later on, as long as they leave that capability in the game, I think it'd be good. Yeah.
All right. Let me up the volume on my end, because it's not you. It's actually lower the volume on mine, because it gets a little loud. Volume is the ultimate.
It would be interesting if they actually kept the little small fabricators that they already introduced, but as a limited resource, like not ones you can install new blueprints in and just fill with any sort of material you want, but it's basically just the endless supply of the very basic tools that you need on your mission with that particular ship.
Yeah, there's precedent for other games that have done similar things like that. You have a small crafting backpack where you can make stuff.
And I think Gin and Tonic has worded it quite good. It's more proof of concept. So how does resource consumption and materializing of an item work in game? Because if we're honest, what we have right now is not crafting at all.
That's true.
Just a placeholder, proof of concept. It's not even something we could call tier 0. So while it has its place and probably should stay in there as it is, I think every larger crafting industrial ship should have some sort of
Tool bench.
tool dispenser. Let's call it
Yeah.
tool dispenser. Not really a crafting station, but something. Okay, I can put in some raw materials and I can get my multi-tool out or something. Just in case you forgot something. Great.
Yeah.
But yeah, saying crafting is in the game right now, I'm not sure if that's the right wording.
Okay. So you know,
It's a basic replicator.
it's a basic replicator, yeah. I mean, fabricators are going to be the things. They're basically going to be replicators because they even talked about food fabricators. So it's like, you know, it's Star Citizen or Star Citizen version of the replicator. Only you have to feed it materials
I so hope
instead of energy.
that food replicators will not be the standard for cooking because we have so beautiful kitchens in those starships.
Mhm.
I want to use the kitchen, not just Chef Mike.
I think you're going to have the food fabricators as the standard method, and if CIG gets spicy, you know, later on down the line, they'll add cooking. But I think the food fabs are going to be how you cook in Star Citizen. But there'll be some sort of like game associated with it in terms of like what materials you add to get what out of, and we saw the crafting screen of the hot dog, you know, that kind of thing. So
We have what?
you've not seen it?
No.
They showed it at CitizenCon. There was a CitizenCon where they literally showed the crafting screen of a hot dog.
Well, yeah. Well, oh, right. I mean, it. Yeah, but it was the exact same crafting screen as for the pistol. It was a proof of concept.
But they also showed, I think, 4 different crafting machines for like weapons, for food,
components,
and for I think chemicals. For like maybe
I think
fertilizing stuff or something.
There was something like that where they showed the different sizes and that meant for different purposes. But the point was is that like the reason why they did that was part of a hard joke. Here's a hot dog, but it was also to
which is not the first time they did that joke.
No, they did that with the whole A. Didn't they? With the giant hot dog in the whole A?
Yes, but before that, they also used the burrito and the hot dog as the placeholders for the trains at Microtech.
Oh, yeah. But the point that they even said, yes, you will be able to fabricate food with this same material. So
I mean,
you know, that's part of that as well. I'll kind of echo as Chad also pointed out, you can create fuses with it too, which is new. So and since fuses are brand new, it's clear that CIG is going to keep this around until they have crafting in, because they're just going to keep adding things. And the idea of it being sort of a proof of concept to test if, you know, you could add material, use material as a sort of a like material go in, material go down, then material then that material becomes thing that is then it materialized in a bucket, and then you open the bucket and you see thing. It's just sort of a basic, you know, crafting where you don't see much and you, but it uses a resource and that kind of thing. So,
I wonder if in that case it actually is already connected to like the underpinnings of the crafting system that they're going to be introducing.
I don't think so, because we are missing all the grades and material values.
Sure, but like just the fact of taking, you know, hooking into an amount of resource, reducing it by a set amount, and then creating an entity with its own ID that it can be streamed in. You know, that low end.
Dash, I'm very cynical, but isn't that describing the process of shooting a rifle? I take a resource, create an entity.
But the entity already exists. Bullets actually exist.
Yeah, the bullets already exist when they're bought. You know, as soon as you buy a magazine, you are given a magazine that it has an own ID, and every bullet inside it has its own ID. And when you shoot it, you just move it. But this is actually creating an entity with its unique ID.
If you really wanted to split hairs, this is the most simplistic way they could have engineered crafting on the back end that you could imagine. They're not doing anything other than deducting a number from the amount of ore in a hopper, which is a number, and instantiating a new object that they already have a vast library of. So there's really nothing complicated going on here under the covers.
Yeah.
And it was it existed before the current system was put in place for for the resource system. It was there. It's been there for a while. So
True.
So I don't
True.
think it's connected to the resource system.
Yeah.
I think it will be, and that may be, and that may actually be tier 0, where they're like, we already have this system in place. We already have the resources in place. The resource system in
Hot
place.
take.
Let's
Hot
click
take?
them together and see what happens. But we'll see.
I don't think crafting is very complicated as a system from a programming standpoint, because as Annie said, it's deduct A, create B.
Yeah.
The big thing, or the big workload, is really the whole recipes. I mean, what did they say? 1,000 recipes?
Yeah.
Where do I get them? How do they
That
look?
and probably
What
the
materials do they use?
Yeah.
Where do I get the materials? All those
Yes.
logistics and splitting it off.
Yeah.
That
splitting
was
it.
going to be my point. Is like crafting doesn't matter unless you have also the resource gathering
It's a game.
put into place.
Yeah.
It's part of
Like
the
for
game.
all the materials, like you're gonna have thousands of blueprints. You're gonna have hundreds of different materials, and then material grades as well. Yeah.
So that kind of leads into another question. What is CIG doing? Like we know, we've seen people who've watched the whole thing.
Oh, that is a loaded question. Oh my fucking! What
are
is
they
CIG doing?
We've seen CitizenCon, right? And I've seen enough people who watched the CitizenCon broadcast, and I say there's crafting coming in the game, and they said no, there isn't. And I say, and I'm like, but it is. They said it, and they're like, no, that was base building. And so,
They didn't watch the entire video then.
Yeah.
Apparently not.
So, but it's clearly like confusing to some people. So, I'll ask this: is crafting and base building, are they two separate things, or are they the same thing? I'll start with you.
They
Zark, on this
are
one.
not two separate things.
Okay.
So,
Well-
base building is practically an extension of crafting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
sense.
so crafting is in Star Citizen as well as in any other game always the procedure of gather resources, create item.
Yeah.
Base building is the exact same thing. If we just look at the process, there's no difference between crafting a pistol in Star Citizen and building a space station.
The only caveat there is that you're placing the building, whereas anything else you craft is going to come out of a hopper. Or something. But you're right.
Yeah. Right. So like when you're crafting, you create an item that is physicalized that you can grab and put into inventory, but a base you have to put down and it becomes part of the environment.
Oh God,
So
that's going to be a
To his
bug.
point,
Go ahead.
that there's very little.
But that's the
Interview
only
phrase,
difference,
technically.
and it doesn't really matter. So crafting, so base building is part of crafting. That's the first thing, and we definitely get crafting. What will be interesting, I say, is what they haven't shown us. And that's the whole aspect of the rumored survival crafting, which Chris talked 8 years ago or something. How does crafting work without stations? That's the thing we don't know yet, but we are pretty aware of what CIG's plan is, what normal crafting is supposed to look like. Very industrialized, very sci-fi, because different than in your usual MMO, you don't go to your crafting station and you have to stand there with your character until you're done. You go to the machine, you press a button, machine is doing the work, you can go and drink a coffee.
Yeah, everything will be 3D printed. Yeah.
That's how it's. We talk about it as a Star Trek replicator. It's a Star Trek replicator. It's going to be the door goes down. You're going to see some flashing lights and some stuff, and then suddenly, ta-da! Hot dog. You know, it's you're not going to see the whole
now I want a
process.
hot dog with RGB.
But I was funny because you said like that the differences between crafting and base building is that base building you won't be able to put in your inventory, and I'm like, that's going to be a bug. That's going to be one of the first bugs. You build a building, you walk up to the building, and you can take the building and put it into your inventory.
I have a small hab in my backpack.
Yeah.
Is that a hab in your backpack?
You just happen to see. You'd be like, oh no, we're in a dangerous situation. We need crafting. Don't worry, I got this. Pulls out factory.
Oh, but that's just the Star Citizen version of the bag of holding.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just a quantum singularity on it.
A pocket dimension, yeah.
Now
Yeah.
we know what the Hadesians were working on.
Yes. Radar, same question to you. Like, is crafting and base building, are they the same thing? Are they different?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of been battering that around here for a while, but yes, they are essentially under the hood. They're the same thing. You're just crafting different things, and like I said before, if crafting an object is going to come out of a machine or a hopper, whereas crafting base building is going to be something that you wind up having a separate UI where you're planting the building down. You're still going to need ingredients or resources for it. It may not be, I don't know if it was clear that you need to have a schematic to build it. I guess probably you would
For
have
building?
to.
You have
But
to.
yeah, for building buildings, but like
Everything
you'll need
works with
resources and
blueprint.
everything else, and yeah. I mean, essentially, it's the same thing, really.
Do you have anything else to add, Darge? Because we kind of jumped all over that one. So
Because we kind of skipped the whole.
good discussion. Good
what was-
discussion. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's good. We can go.
No,
I will also go ahead.
no, just gonna just parrot the whole point that it's part of crafting. It's like, but it's like people who say that the base building is coming, but not crafting is like they skip the entire like 5-minute segment when they showed off the screenshot of the pistol fabricating. Is that
That was it.
is that a
That was
With
the
a-
bathroom
pistol
with a
break.
me- with a
building that they're
meme?
building?
With a historical meme they added that no one got but me for some reason. The bad
That was the
copper.
bathroom break.
The bad
The bad
copper.
co-
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
more people got it.
And Nasir.
And Nasir, yeah. And
Yeah,
Nasir and
the
his
thing
bad
is-
copper.
Even
The
I didn't
thing
get that.
is,
I needed a tip on that one.
Yeah.
I believe I know the answer to your question.
Hmm.
We already know and have well established that Star Citizens cannot read.
Gamers don't read, and
Yeah.
So as soon as that came up, it was like a blind spot.
Yeah.
Yes.
mm.
So
This
it
sign
might be
can't
that-
stop me because I can't read.
So might be that some people start to develop new elements now that Star Citizen got more and more visual over the last few years. So there was less excuse with I can't read it or I did not read it. So people need new excuses. So maybe they develop blindness.
Just sectional blindness. Guess what I was going to say. So say something about base building and crafting. I agree with everybody that it's going to be they're kind of the same thing to a degree. And it was about the blueprints. So blueprints, we know that blueprints are the key to everything because they even mentioned it in the last 3-hour Star Citizen Live. Jared mentioned that one of the
I'm still about halfway through that only, so please no spoilers. Too many spoilers, please.
the only spoiler I'll say is they mention the item returning system, the item retention system.
That was yes.
And at the end of that discussion,
As soon as possible, yeah.
And they mentioned that the one that we're going to get is version 1 of 3 versions that they're working on. That's version 1, and then there's going to be another version, and the last version is instead of giving you the item back, they give you a blueprint.
So you can just rebuild it
yourself.
The big question I have is, so I assume there will be 2 different versions for the unique item recovery. The first one will be some sort of insurance, simply because people will go nuts if you say, if you want your unique item, you have to go crafting. And I say, I don't want to do crafting, so no,
Yeah.
leave me alone.
Yeah. I hope you're right, because you never know. Like, what if they have like really hard to get components for these things?
So that's the second question.
Yeah.
If we can craft them, and it's supposed to be an easy recovery, and I mean, I know a couple of games that have like you add a token scrap in to rebuild your unique item. That's fine if you don't trade. But what if I go and say, hey, my orc, I've got this cool subscriber armor or this cool store-bought armor. Come here. I have equipment for all of you and for 2,000 other people.
So I think they did mention that there will be crafting limits, count limits on some of the blueprints. and I know the blueprints themselves certainly can't be transferred. So that may wind up playing a role in that. I'm sure CIG thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean-
that is the main reason why it's been taking so long, is because every system they kind of figure out how they're going to implement unique item
Yeah.
recovery is they need to also create a system to prevent duping.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
we
personally,
went from like the lost and found desk, and then lockers, and then kiosks, and now fabrication. But everything has a potential for duplication. And then you have a dupe system, and you sell it on the gray market to other people, and then you keep duping, and then you keep getting it back. And then,
I mean,
I
I'll be honest.
understand completely.
I have no problem with crafting multiples of the subscriber gear. For example, the Ripper's SMG. I love that gun. I would instantly craft 100 of those, and I would share this throughout the org simply because that gun is awesome. The question is, they have to balance this, and that's why I think it's so important that we have some sort of recovery, or maybe the first gun you craft every week is only one scrap or something, and then if you have to use the normal components, some sort of balance they need to do. So because I think
it could.
I was gonna say
One
that
thing-
that I think the real thing that it could be doing, that because they mentioned it, I could see that as being a bonus. So rather than being the replacement for getting a replacement, it could be and you get a way to craft it yourself and then make it on your own and sell it as you want if you want to. So it's just something you get as a subscriber gear. So you could make it and sell it on the market if you want to, but because
then nobody would subscribe.
then no one would subscribe. But there's got to be
a
other
spicy
reasons,
question.
obviously, but
Here's a spicy question. Do you believe you're entitled to the item in perpetuity just because you paid real life money for it?
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
That was the
But what if
premise you were given when you bought it.
Yeah.
But
I am
But what if your phone breaks after 2 years and you're out of warranty?
So
Are you entitled for a replacement?
Not a replacement.
So
but
I'll
go ahead. Sorry.
Slightly different answer. I think in case of FPS items that are usually less worth, I wouldn't mind if they get lost. The big problem is getting them back, and I think even if somehow those things could get lost forever, would be fine. Ships, whole different topic. Whole different topic. But FPS gear would be okay if we lose it, but the issue is there needs to be a way to recover it, at least in the midterm. If at some point you degraded your blueprint or something because you crafted 1 billion Ripper SMGs, okay. For the game itself, I think it's better if they just say subscriber gear, store-bought items, just keep them in perpetuity, or at least have a way to regain them inside the game, be it through insurance or through crafting. Simply because if they don't do this, there will be a shitstorm.
So what I wanted to get at is there needs to be some way of them limiting how many times or how many items you can get from your blueprint. So if you buy the blueprint for $5, it's like you make 100 of them and then the blueprint expires.
I disagree with you.
The blueprint you get,
okay.
or they put cooldowns on blueprint, so you can only build one once every couple of days.
Bash, I disagree with you there because so some blueprints, I mean they already alluded to that some blueprints can only be used once because there's like it's a bangle carrier and you only build this thing once or something. But if we stay in the realm of normal blueprints, normal FPS equipment especially, I don't think you need to have any sort of limit on building it, even subscriber item. I mean, it's then a question of what materials do you use, because CIG can make each item within the game as expensive as they want, depending on the material composition needed to craft it. And if you decide, okay, I bought a Pioneer, but I'm not doing base building, I'm just spitting out armor, FPS armor. I have 4 fabricators. One is always crafting the helmet, one is always crafting the arms, one the torso, one the legs. They run 24/7, and I crank out 1,000 pieces of armor a week. If you can source the materials, if you can sell that and make a profit, that's a valid game plan. And I'll be honest, one of the biggest things starting in Pyro, where I had some money but nothing to buy, is you appreciate the idea of crafting. When you can say, okay, I am a system, I have some infrastructure, but I have troubles procuring enough ammo for any FPS mission. I have troubles securing a good armor or an armor I want. And then someone goes here and says, hey, look in my inventory. I crafted hundreds of STU of ammunition. Buy if you want.
Okay.
No, but look, so my point isn't about just regular items, like something you could buy in a shop, as many as you want. I'm talking about unique items, stuff that that in the first place entices you to subscribe. That something that you can get in store, that is a variant, or a unique skin or something like that. That
Again, I don't see the need to limit it because
I'm with
the thing
Zark.
is,
I think I know what you're talking about, and I'll kind of bump out this one, and we'll move on from this because we've talked about this a lot. It's good, but we're gonna move on to talking about blueprints themselves and how they function and how y'all think that that's a good idea or not. But I think the what Zark is trying to say, and what I agree with him, if this is what he's trying to say, is that if I have a red custodian, that's really cool, right? And it's part of a subscriber gear, and I can just make as much as I want to and give it to anybody I want to. I don't know if that matters as much, because it's like, oh yeah, well then you could also purchase purchase in the subscriber store. So well then no people purchase in the subscriber store, but it's not really meant as a purchase. It's meant as a perk for subscribing.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
don't think it
potentially.
matters. I don't think it matters as much, because what happens if I have my red custodian, and somebody who's better than me gets drops on me, knocks me out or kills me, and then takes my red custodian, and I get a new one? Does it matter?
But
and I mean,
It's just a
okay, but on the
custodian
other
that's red.
hand, would the uniqueness of that particular red custodian with the, like, I don't know, the Citizen Con logo on it,
Mhm.
to make that unique version, would it make sense for them to have a unique component that
Possibly.
otherwise, like that is on top of the regular custodian blueprint?
I mean that okay.
But
I
then,
think
but then, like Paul said,
all right.
if it gets stolen and you want it back immediately,
But-
you would need to go on a hunt for that component that's
but
going to
Darth,
take you months.
if we keep to the red custodian, I think that's less a question of subscriber gear and more a question of how does applying a skin will work in the game. We've seen the whole thing with the orc
Okay,
logos.
All right.
So,
We're moving on.
Anyway,
We're moving on.
yeah,
I am
yeah,
cutting this
yeah.
off right now. We're moving on. Stop it. This is what Zark and Darj do on their own. They just go off on wild tangents. So, but we're talking about blueprints, which is a good thing to talk about, anyways. When we're talking about blueprints,
Also, Andy hasn't said anything in about
Yeah.
10 minutes, so I feel like
he's
it's
just enjoying
his turn to
the
talk.
weird discussion.
I think that's a question that's going to have to be answered by CAG, because I think they're having the same debate you guys are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
As Jared said, they always have the same debates we have. So this is definitely something that's going to come
Just
up.
3 weeks earlier, yeah.
So
Like, I don't think they have the answer yet, is what I mean.
No.
Yeah. Otherwise, we would have the item recovery in game by now already.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to matter early on, because the first version of the item recovery is just going to be, it's back. Here you go. Maybe a timer, something like that. But we're talking about blueprints. For those of you who don't know, blueprints is going to be how everything is going to be working in Star Citizen. So if you're going to be crafting, you need a blueprint ahead of time. They haven't been clear as to if some things are going to be universal blueprints where everyone's going to have access to it, or maybe it's you have to buy it, maybe you have to acquire it. We don't really know. But I want to hear your thoughts. I'll start with you on this one, Darj. What are your thoughts on the blueprint system as it stands?
Oh, geez.
Goods and
I
bads.
don't think we've
What's
heard.
some pitfalls
Yeah.
they might throw into, Because we also know they're going to be lootable. So
Yeah. Lootable. For basic stuff, I feel like there should just be like a dime a dozen. Like you can actually go into a store and buy a blueprint. Just if you want to build, I don't know, just your basic bitch arc-light pistol. Yeah, it's going to cost a lot more than just the pistol, but yeah, why not? Maybe it would make sense for all the blueprints to be reputation gated. So you need to have at least some standing um, with the whatever the crafting guild is, if you want to purchase the blueprints, so you can legally become part of the manufacturing chain within the guild. Otherwise, sure, lootable, stealable, tradable, where outside the system. I feel like that should also exist as a possibility. In terms of, like we mentioned before, like temporary blueprints. That is, yeah, that's unfortunately something that will have to exist. Just like you can't have a blueprint that just lets you build an infinite amount of Bengal carriers.
But would that
Why
just
not?
to put it in there, because the amount of resources
Okay.
to build a Bengal carrier are
That's
massive.
that's the sink is
Yeah.
the resources, not
Yeah,
the
but
count.
And the infrastructure.
But it's not shouldn't be the
You
only
have-
sink. It
you
shouldn't be
have
the
on
only
the
sink.
one
Zark,
side.
let Darj finish.
Yeah, it shouldn't be the only sink. Okay, but potentially there is. So years ago they said there will be one Bengal carrier in the game
Times the
that you'll be
base.
able to, yeah. So potentially they transpose that to one golden Bengal carrier blueprint
We'll see.
that which can be stolen, and if one org has it and another org wants it, they'll want to then infiltrate their bases and want to steal it.
I think for Star Citizen to grow, they can't do that. That's very limiting. With such a large universe.
No. I don't mean like there's going to be one. There will be more blueprints that let you
Yeah.
build a limited amount of bug carriers, but there will be one blueprint that lets you build an unlimited amount of Bengal carriers. You see what I mean? So that'll be the most venerable item that you can get
Right.
in the game.
I get what you're saying. My thought is they're better off. The universe is going to be so big. I don't think the need to have a single blueprint is the way to go, because then it concentrates the power in too many, in the hands of too few people, to one few org, I guess I could say. They're better off to have time and resource sinks in it to make it that would be the challenge, to make sure that we're not overrun with Bengals every 5 feet.
Oh, sure. But like I said, it should be more. There should be more things instead of just the material needs.
I mean, they said you can only build one Bengal carrier, or they alluded. I mean, they didn't confirm we can build a Bengal carrier. They only alluded to it, and they only alluded that it will be a single-use blueprint. But they never said you can't regain the blueprint. So even if you get the blueprint, build your Bengal carrier, there's nothing that stops you from regaining this blueprint, as far as I interpret this. So you have your time sink. And the simple reason is, I mean, let's be honest, we've seen enough crazy things in this community. If you had a blueprint with unlimited Bengals, they would just dump them out.
Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing to think about. The resource sink is multidimensional. It's not just a matter of gathering the resources. It could also be that in order to build a Bengal, one of the resources is very rare or doesn't spawn frequently. And that means CIG controls the switch as to how many of them can be built. And it doesn't have to be one resource. It could be a series of them. But
there could be, as you said, Darj, like a special resource that you can only get from a certain place. Like you have to be able to build and it could. We're also thinking about one resource, one blueprint. I'm going to introduce an idea which is going to probably it's almost certainly been thought about with CIG, but what if blueprints are not one blueprint, but multiple blueprints? Not just
Yeah.
so you'd need like a blueprint to build the Bengal hull and a blueprint to build the
So
interiors and the blueprint to build like the reactor and that kind of stuff.
That's kind of what I wanted to talk about in my response to the question.
Go ahead,
So I'm very opinionated on this because I've been playing a bunch of different MMOs over the decades, and they've, CIG has. I think the blueprint, to answer the question, the blueprint idea is very good.
Okay.
There's plenty of case studies that CIG can draw from to learn from how other people have implemented it and where they failed and where they succeeded. Star Wars Galaxies is a great one to follow, and I believe, based on what I saw, that they're really closely following that example, and I'll touch on that in a minute. New World has one, even Ashes of Creation has one, but it's got some limiting factors in it. When you go to craft in some of the modern MMOs, they only have like 3 or 4 tiers of resources. So when you go to make your sword, you can pick common steel, rare steel, epic steel, or legendary steel, that kind of thing. The reason why that's kind of good in the sense that it makes it simplistic, but the problem is you can only ever make a legendary sword. The way Star Wars Galaxies did it, and how CIG is kind of copying it, resources have a value from 0 to, say, 1,000, which means you can always be on this quest to search for better steel. And that's what I think was one of the biggest succeeding characteristics in Star Wars Galaxies, because you had these vendors that would set up shop all over the galaxy on different planets, and each one was always able to continually strive to have the best pistol or whatever it was they were making, because they would go on the hunt for the highest quality ore or resources that would go into it. And that becomes important because that's what allows you to establish an in-game, reputation for being the best builder. There are also some good, and so to touch on what you were talking about, there are some other good examples of what not to do. One of the games that I played for a while was Dual Universe, and I loved it for a while. It was a great game when it first started, but it started off in a beta before they had really ironed out all of the mechanics of the game. And they had a blueprint system. Oh, well, no, let me back up. They had a manufacturing system that worked exactly the way you describe it. In order to build a ore processing system, you'd have to go out and get a metal frame and a heater and all the little various subcomponents. So you had to manufacture those components, and in many cases, those subcomponents needed different manufacturing machines to craft. So the sink there was that you always had to start with the most basic resource, which was like a transistor or a relay or something, and then work your way up from there to build the bigger components that would then allow you to get to that final refinery thing that you wanted to build.
I'm getting Minecraft Feed the Beast flashbacks right now.
This is where they dropped the ball. This is where they dropped the ball because everyone at that point loved crafting so much that it became, instead of a space exploration and combat game, everything else fell by the wayside. Everybody went all out to set up these enormous factories that were set up on automation to craft all the components, and it was really elaborate, but it became crafting 101.
Satisfactory.
And nothing else. Yeah, satisfactory. So here's where they dropped the ball. Here's where they failed. The way they decided to fix it was to make it so that you needed a blueprint or a recipe in order to craft every single component, and you had to buy each one. And some of them were outrageously expensive. So all the people who had gone through all the effort to set up their manufacturing factories, hours and weeks and days to set them up, suddenly could not work them anymore because they couldn't afford to buy the blueprints. And they realized that they had made a mistake in the mechanic early on, at that point during the beta, but their fix caused usage to drop off a cliff and the game never recovered. So there are lots of different examples to draw from with regard to crafting. I think the Star Wars Galaxy model definitely is the best. There are other models out there that you can see that are kind of basic and simplistic, and there are little pieces you can take from that. From what I saw at the presentation at SitCon, I really think they are trying to do exactly that. That's what you always do. Stand on the shoulders of other people. They've done the work. They've made their mistakes, learn from their mistakes, and then try to take the best of what they do and put it into something even better. And I think that's where we're at. That's where I'm hoping we're going to end up with CIG's side of things. The blueprints become a tangible way to have an asset that you can either give out at special events, or you can earn it as a reward, or you can find on a ship someplace. There's all sorts of gameplay you can create just with the blueprints. So I think that's a phenomenal way to do it.
Yeah.
Zark, your thoughts on the blueprints?
I think most has already been said.
Okay.
Um,
Do you like the idea? Do you think it's a good idea, bad idea?
yeah. I mean, let's face it, the blueprint system is like any recipe system in any other MMO. It's a basic staple. It does work. The big question, there are two things I wonder about. The first thing is they said that for crafting higher gear items, you need more complex components, which is great. The question I have is, how do you get them? Can I go to my crafting machine and just craft the components for tier 4 weapon? Well, tier 3 weapon in that case, and then just continue to craft it. Where do I store this? So it's more of the logistics side of things. Where do I get those more complicated components? And I also think that we will have some sort of base recipes just unlocked. Like, I mean, you can't even start crafting, if we're honest, if you don't have at least some basic recipes. Worse, if you try to start in the base building profession, and you want to earn reputation there, you need some sort of basic buildings that are just available. And you build them, you build basic items, then you get reputation, you unlock more, you buy blueprints on the market from other players, you loot them, whatever. Again, the big question is, how does the more complex component side of things work? In most games, it's usually okay. You go to a higher tier, you're now the level X smith or something, and then you have the ability to use iron and coal and make steel, for example, and then you can use steel. And the question is, how does this work in the Citizen? Especially considering how tedious logistics is. I mean, I have no idea if any of you tried to loot a couple of corpses lately in Pyro. It's a pain in the butt because you have to move the corpses into your ship, you have to unclothe them, then you have to place all the boxes on your item grid and so on. And if I have to do this with 100 boxes of crafting materials,
That's true.
that can be very tedious. So I'm more interested in the logistics, because the blueprint system itself is, in my opinion, great as it is, especially with the values of the different materials. Again, this allows for you to craft what you need. Because if I don't need the best pistol, like Andy said, I can just dump some crappy iron into the crafting machine and get a basic pistol that just does the job. And if I'm in Pyro, a crappy pistol that does its job is all I want, all I need right now. I don't need some fancy tier 3 special full maxed out pistol.
What you're talking about is the difference between raid gear,
Yes.
dungeon gear, PvP gear, and grind gear.
Yeah.
To grind out, you just need a pistol.
I just had a thought.
Go ahead.
Because Zark mentioned pistols for pyro. that pyro SMG that's built out of that looks like it was cobbled together from various other parts. Do you think
with the shotgun?
Do you think they would go the lengths of actually requiring those parts being requirements for instead of raw materials?
Possibly.
I personally,
but
think
could there actually be like a different tier of crafting where you put in a part that you don't want anymore?
Yeah,
instead of raw material.
I totally.
Yeah.
So like upgrading.
Well, kind of like your gun is busted because we're all gonna have everything's gonna have degradation centers. So like say your gun is just worn out, the firing pin doesn't work anymore, repairing it would cost a lot of money, or you could scrap it and then all of that gun could then be used to make a new gun. So the parts of it are that, so you have a brand new one, and maybe it's a better one because you've done some research and you have a new that you're doing that. So you've got a tier 2 version of that gun. Can you just put that tier 1 in there and then pump it in there?
They touched on that whole idea of upgrading tiered weapons or items. I thought so. Maybe that's what they weren't very clear on it, but maybe that's what they're trying to say.
So I think there could be 2 ways this could work. The first way is you can store certain components inside the crafting machine, and if you craft those components, they just get stored in an internal
buffer
cargo grid.
Yeah.
And the other way is if we can upgrade weapons, that means we have to put those weapons inside. So if I have a multi-tool, I put it in, I can create the Ripper SMG. And I think this might actually be one of the starting points for getting your first good gear later on, because weapons like the Ripper SMG and other weapons that are, in essence, scrabble together guns, bastardizations of tools that you can buy rather cheap and that you can just repurpose, might be the way to go. I mean, multi-tool, if it stays as it is, it's the most common thing you can find. And if I can just dump it in a crafting system, throw in, I don't know, maybe some more energy cells of the multi-tool, and I get the Ripper SMG, I'm happy. That's a great recipe. I mean, the weapon is awesome right now. It's probably not really balanced, but at the same time, it has some clear limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, visually, it reads more than just the power cells from the multi-tool.
Yeah, you probably have to throw in a couple of orbits that get repurposed in a.
I think like the front bit itself is straight.
It looks like a couple of orbits, to be honest. Like
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It might also be something from the true hold, the tractor beam, that kind of stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's cobbled together.
But it also has the little spinny thing that Gemini weapons have.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So
let's move on to the last one because we're coming up on the end of the hour, and usually I'd like to keep this not a tight 1 hour, but a loose 1 hour. So
4 more years.
Please don't say that. Please don't say that.
I have two more questions, but I'll kind of go over my opinion on this. I think the blueprints. I think what Radar is striking out is what I believe CIG is trying to do, which is Star Wars Galaxies. And the thing that is important to understand about Star Wars Galaxies is that I've seen some discussion in chat, which I agree with. I like survival games, but the most unimmersive part of survival games is the fact that one person can go from a rock to an AK-47 and know all of the parts about in between, all of the steps between the two, between the beginning and the end, within like a couple of hours. There's even if you slowed that down, that would still be like an insane process to learn how to fabricate metal, and like I think Minecraft, and there's certain Minecraft mods that do it pretty well, where it's like, and like Satisfactory, where like you have to learn all of the processes, and it's a complicated process and requires the right machines and everything else like that. But I think with a game like Star Citizen, it needs to emphasize specialties. That players need to focus on what they want to do, not locked into it, but the more time you put into it, the better you get at it. Thus, your
small tension, Paul, on that part. I think this could be a great reward for getting reputation with the Hunter Guild. That you can, for one, earn like a carryable crafting station, something that comes with a backpack. And that you can learn recipes for repurposing certain
basic stuff.
Basic stuff, yeah. And I mean, like repurposing the multi-tool into a gun, repurposing sticks and stones into a spear, or something.
Into something that I can actually break your bones.
But those are fun. What I'm talking about is like the idea that one person will be able to get to the point where they can build a full bangle carrier on their own. Like that idea.
Okay,
that'll never happen.
That'll
yeah,
never
I
happen with
think
the system.
I
There
think
will
you
be
would govern
one.
that with the quantity of resources, making it practical
Mm.
for any one human to be able to gather all that.
But
But let me ask you this, Paul, because I agree with what you're saying, and Ashes of Creation has something that's similar to that because they break down their skills by categories. If CIG wanted to try to continue to take their path and stay away from the idea of having skills, how would you do that? How would you have specialties?
it would just
That would make it so that you-
that's comes into the next question that CIG already introduced, which is research.
Okay.
So, like, because we're not talking about locking into a specialties. We already know how research that you need to do some certain research and certain tasks, and those tasks will then unlock
That's
a different tier of gear or
Smart.
unlock stuff that you can do that. So it's all built into the gameplay already. And that's where I was going to say that I think that way you're not locked into a leveling system, but you still have to invest time into that. And that
Did
also
you provide a reason for the endeavor?
I mean, Cult of the Endeavor, High Priest of the
Take
Cult of the Endeavor.
Take note, John Crew.
Yeah, I've said that for a while. I've said that the Endeavor should be a colony ship, and it should basically be able to do anything a new colony would need: crafting, base building, research and development.
Well, I
There's
was
one
looking towards the
thing,
research
Paul-
because the research is a very good way to accomplish what you were just talking about without having skills in the
Yeah.
game.
But
And-
there's one important thing the Endeavor can't do that every colony ship should be able to do. It cannot land. Safely, at least.
Well, I don't know. They do have a front. They do have like a nice little front, like excursion vehicles that I can land.
But one of the tropes about colony ships is that they land and then
Once.
get
Yeah.
converted into
Yeah.
the colony.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want to do that though. But
No.
that goes into the next question though, because CIG has talked about things like reputation adding to your ability to get blueprints, but also research being a big part of upgrading, where you have to do certain tasks, on a list which is randomized or chosen, and those things will allow you to then add to more research to your to a specific tier to improve the tier of any given item. What is your
Craft
thought on
100 daggers to
Yeah.
upgrade your smithing,
Yeah, that's
like in Skyrim.
like
Yeah.
in Skyrim, or enchant a bunch of. There's the one. What is it in Skyrim? The blue butterfly wings and the blue mountain flowers makes you can if you get those two, because they're really easy to get in the early ways. They sell for like 200 gold a piece, and you can just sit there and grind them out, and you can get obtain levels in alchemy, that kind of thing. But there is going to be some gamification. This is let's start off with that. It's a game. So you're going to
It
need
has to be
some
fun.
you're gonna have some gamification in there, even if it's CIG hand wavium, sort of like it exists for this reason, whatever. But with that all in mind, Zark, I'll start with you. What is your thoughts on how CIG's presented research thus far?
So let's assume there's a certain special copyright law system in Star Citizen that prevents sharing blueprints and so on. So that's all fine. The research, I mean, it's necessary. It's not even just that I say, okay, it's gamifying, it's some sort of progress. It's necessary for you as a crafter, because if you buy your crafting shift, the Smithery 5000 from Argo, okay? You have your crafting tool. You have your crafting bench in the bag, maybe 2 or 3, and you are only interested in crafting weapons. Your game loop would be now complete. Everything you do is maybe try to get all blueprints for all weapons, but you have nothing actually to achieve if we don't take research in mind. If we add research to this, the game changes, because now it's okay. I need to craft these pistols with these attributes. In-game sense might be, okay, the machine needs to learn how the pistol works differently, and then it can produce a higher grade one or something. But now you have something to do as a crafter. You have to go around and look for the material with the right grade. So that's the first part.
It's not just a material with the right grade. They also noticed that like there will be some substitute materials that you could use.
Yeah,
Like if you used copper or steel or tungsten, that would differently adjust certain attributes of the same weapon,
yeah,
even though you're making the same subpart of a gun, for instance.
yeah. The gun has 4 materials, and depending on what value each has, the values are different on the gun. But if the research says, okay, you need 10 guns, one has to has at least that much firepower. You have to figure out how to do this. So now you have agency. Now you as a crafter, if you want to really specialize in those weapons, you have to do something. You have a reason to play, not just say, hey, I already got the blueprint for every gun, I don't have anything to do. No, you actually have to go down, look for the material, craft it, develop further. Maybe, and they didn't talk about this, but I wouldn't put it past CIG. Maybe if you have fully upgraded a weapon to tier 3, you could go for experimental materials. Like, what does change if I substitute iron with steel? How does this affect the weapon? Maybe something like that would be the next iteration. And
I think that's already part of it.
yeah,
They
and the
they
other
did
side
mention
is
you can swap out a different kind of material. Yeah.
yeah, and the other side is it does help the diversity within the game, because other games usually have a very artificial limiting, like you can only be 2 different professions in, let's say, World of Warcraft. You can only be a smith and a miner. Okay. In Star Citizen, we don't have the artificial limitations, but research takes time. No idea if you can game the system by researching 4 different things at the same time on different crafting stations. Who knows? But it forces you, at least in the early game, to make a commitment. Like you can say, okay, first of all, I want to learn all blueprints that are relevant for my game style. For example, I want to know how to craft max lift tractor beam. I want to know how to craft medium mining armor. I want to know how to craft fuses. And I want to know how to craft an SMG. Okay, that's what you first focus on. And then you say, okay, I want to go down the route of armor. I want to focus completely on armor. And then you learn more armor blueprints because your bases are covered. But because the research takes time, you can't just do all at once.
Can I
You-
interject here a little bit? Have
Go
they
ahead.
actually
Yeah,
talked
sure.
about research yet?
Yes, they have.
Because I don't remember hearing anything about it.
See, this is what I mean. It was in the same discussion. They talked about how
Really?
Yeah.
they had different. They had,
But it's not like this nebulous research where you just go out and then and do science like they did in Star Trek. You're actively
task.
just experimenting with the blueprints to upgrade them, upgrade a
Really?
certain part of a blueprint
Mhm.
or the
They talked
entire
about this
blueprint.
because I didn't get that at
Yeah.
all. Shit, I gotta have to
Oh,
watch
I
this
was
again.
sitting next to you when they were
I
talking
know.
about
I
this.
got to be a bathroom break. Got to be what it was.
It was so yeah.
Or
So
I was out getting another hot dog.
for those
Yeah,
who don't,
it's like you
Uh,
have so
go ahead.
sure, Paul.
So basically, it's you to upgrade this. You need to do certain tasks to upgrade this blueprint. So some of it is like it might be go chart this star or do these sort of do
Bless
this
you.
activity. Go mine a bunch of rocks, build a bunch of these things, and then that will unlock the research. And then the part for that research gets added to the blueprint is unsure, but they did talk about the idea of having some sort of, science based or some science like device that you then feed this you go to use all this information, and then it
Okay.
crafts that
Is that
updated blueprint.
kind of how Starfield works? Starfield
Kind
crafting?
of, yeah. That's kind of how Starfield works, where you have to get specific resources and then use those specific resources to upgrade specific things to unlock other things. But that requires
Okay.
resources to fit into it. In this case, it's less of a resource and more of an activity based thing. So it can really lead to some weird things like go kill 50 people and you with this gun, and now suddenly this gun is you can find a higher version of it. It's still the kill 50 boars
Well,
quests,
it-
but
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. Like you actually put in the time of firing the gun at
Learning how it
stationary or
works.
moving targets,
Yeah.
and then you realize like what thing you need to fiddle with to make it better, and or what material to add or what grade material to add to to improve what you're
I
looking at.
don't think there will be those kind of missions. I don't think there will be kill 50 guys with this gun. I think it will
They
always
showed
be...
it in the screenshot.
Yeah, they did.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only remember the build 10 pistols and one with a firing rate of X. That's the one I
Yeah,
remember.
the other one was get some 50 NPC kills
I'm not sure
the,
if this will stay because it feels very strange to have a crafting industrial profession requiring you to kill people.
yeah. It was all Photoshop
Yeah, it was
mock-ups.
definitely mock-ups.
I mean, on the other hand, it would generate work for bounty hunters because then you can say, "Hey, bounty hunters, I'm paying for 50 NPCs. I want them bound
to
and
be
gagged,
killed
and
with these guns. Yeah.
no, because you have to kill them, so
Oh.
they get bound and gagged. developed,
Oh,
and
test subjects.
torture you, and you just have to kill them. Tick, 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 tick.
Easy there, Zark Hurston. All right, calm down. Right on. Your thoughts on any of these systems?
I want a GLaDOS in this game.
What are your thoughts on this sort of idea of
I feel kind of
Hey,
ignorant.
Addison opened the door with AI, being
Yes.
on the
Yes,
table
she did.
again.
Yes, testing subject number 1. I feel kind of ignorant because I didn't even know what research was in the game until just recently. But I think you kind of touched on it earlier, and it's true. You shouldn't. There has to be some kind of game mechanism to keep you from just suddenly going from making the rock or the multi-tool to making the grenade launcher overnight. If it does work similar to some of the other games that are out there, like Starfield, where you have to go off and do a task, that's good because it provides a mechanism for syncing, controlling how quickly they can build something and making sure that we don't have this runaway thing where everybody kind of blows through all of the fun parts of the game overnight and then everybody's looking for something to do. So yeah, I'm down with it. I think that would be, if they've addressed it already, I think it would be a good way to gate all of the stuff that people would be making appropriate.
They need to have clear goals for that.
Yeah.
Like a clear research tree with potentially like fuzzy branches depending on what you want. But if you want to get to a specific end goal, there needs to be like a laid out plan. And what Paul face are you making right now?
I'm trying to wait. I'm waiting for you patiently to finish because my brain immediately flashed to the
There's one.
Path of Exile. I guess was that the latest one that came out? Path of Exile 2, or is that Pillars of Eternity? It's Path of Exile. The Path of Exile like skill tree. Have you seen that?
I'll Google it right now.
It is this big central thing, and then it's just like this entire page just goes on for like a 4K monitor length of just tiny little things that could be added. That's what I'm thinking. Right. With some research tree.
there is something to be said for having that progress on your screen and being able to follow along.
That's true. Yeah.
How well you're getting there. That kind of feedback is part of that reward, that endorphin driven reward to know how far you're progressing. That's a research tree.
Yeah, if you look at it in the details,
1,385
that's a Mandelbrot diagram.
Yeah, those each point in that is a point you have to do at one point. So
yeah,
but it's all
everything in moderation.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about crafting and research is it's next to farming probably the only 3 professions that don't progress with a ship.
That's true.
Every other profession you do, you have a progress goal with a ship. But if you're crafting, aside from the capacity output, there's no reason to go for a bigger ship. Whereas mining, you want a bigger ship so you can mine the harder stuff, the more profitable
or in quantity and in time.
Yeah, quantity as well.
I think it is a good idea that they have these things that don't require a ship, because Star Citizen is a much larger game than it was originally conceived. And if they want to offer gameplay to people who don't necessarily want to be in a ship, who like to be, be the ability to go fly around, but really kind of are more into the FPS based construction stuff, now they have an avenue to satisfy those people.
Yeah.
Darsh, your thoughts on I know this, but then we'll wrap it up. Anything else you want to add? I should say, because we've been kind of jumping in and out. So
Yeah, not really much to add at this point. Just like there, I hope they develop the idea pretty far along before they implement the first, like even the first vestige of it into the game. Just because we don't want more refactors as more tiers come online. But the way Richard Tyler was talking about it, I think they are pretty much of the same mentality that they need good design docs first
okay.
for
I
everything.
think that's probably probably also one of the reasons why they shifted their focus to content instead of feature this year.
Because they need more time to kind of focus on it.
Yeah, because they want to have a clean slate to build onto. Because right now, if we look at Star Citizen like a construction base, there's so much. We have a good fundament with solid walls, solid interior walls, but there's so much crap lying around. You can continue to build, but it gets harder and harder. At some point, you need to clean up all the mess.
Yeah, they just got to make it work.
All right, Darj, we'll start with this last one. This is the last final question. Keep it nice and brief with summary. Does Star Citizen need a crafting system?
Yes.
Why? Nice summary, just like a quick summary on it.
That was part of the question.
Concise, Paul.
I'll tell you.
You gave me a fucking yes or no question.
Okay.
I gave you an answer.
No.
I will do the teacher thing and say, please explain. Yes or no? And please
Elaborate,
explain.
yeah.
Elaborate,
or as one of my favorite lines from Star Wars recently is, thesis, please.
Yes.
Andor.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Because it has grown so much from the original pitch that it just wants to be the everything game, and then the everything game needs to have crafting. But as with hunger and thirst, and with mining and salvage, they've shown they at least know how not to fall into the the pitfalls of the really menial grindy games. So yeah, okay, Star Citizen may not need it, but the Star Citizens do.
Okay, that's a good way of putting
Does
it.
that make sense?
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Star Citizen as a game doesn't necessarily need crafting, but the players who are playing Star Citizen would improve their experience with crafting.
Just to keep them engaged and to keep agency in players' hands instead of just NPCs, or just having to always go onto the RSI website and buy the latest shiny. They can buy it from players in game.
Andy?
We need a purpose in the game, plain and simple. Rich Tyler is famous for saying this. We need to close the game loops. Mm-hmm. Why am I mining this ore? Am I just mining it to go sell it somewhere and make money? And then what am I going to do with the money? No. They have these various core foundational mechanics in the game: salvage, crafting, bounty hunting, ship fighting, that kind of thing. In order to keep people really engaged in the game and give the game a long-term future, and give people a reason to want to stay in there and build part of that universe, they need to be able to build part of that universe. And that means crafting. That means being able to construct new things that help them enjoy their gameplay with all those resources that they've gathered. Give me a reason to jump in a rock and drive around and look for a specific set of minerals on a faraway planet, because I'm looking for a very special ore so I can craft this cool weapon and sell it and make some money, or use it to kill people in PvP, just like in the real world. They've built such a large, elaborate universe that is, we all know this. It's beyond the scope of what they were originally looking for. You can't just build it. You got to give them something to do in it. And I think the crafting system is absolutely one of the biggest things that will help fill that need for people who want to have a good long-term purpose to live in this game.
Do you often go out killing people in the real world?
Yes, every day.
Depends on where you are.
My point, yeah, exactly. My point with people who
Florida.
Let me stop there. But the thing is, we all try to do things in real life to progress ourselves and make money, whether it's work as a teacher or build models or make computer software, that kind of thing. If you're going to have a large universe and you're going to simulate that universe in a game fashion, you have to make sure you have enough of the elements of a real universe to make you want to stay in it. And part of that is crafting and the rewards that come with it. Profiting.
There is some notion about number go up, make brain happy, but at some point you want to actually do something for that instead of just make the number go bigger.
Yeah. Every game's purpose is to trigger those baser instincts in us. Our the combat gets our rivalry, tribalism things going, and the adrenaline going. If we win, we feel victorious, and it satisfies some internal biological need. If we, sell the most items because we've made the best weapon, then my ego goes up. Those are all real things that we all deal with in real life. And if you want to make a successful game, you got to find a way to trigger those same, responses in a video game. That's essentially what games are all about. That's the only reason why we play them. Thank you for my TED Talk.
Yeah, as I say, Zark.
It's a third yes, though after social interaction and giving players a purpose, I add that Star Citizen has the necessity for crafting. Simply because spawning in Pyro, you have money, in my case roughly 50k, and nothing to spend it on. Now you could say, okay, let's start in Stanton, move to Pyro, buy stuff there, then move to Pyro. But every other system is just as barren, has as little infrastructure as Pyro, maybe even less. Supplies are also rare. You cannot get what you want. So simply to explore the verse, simply to have the ability to move from A to B to C, to stay in a system that's as undeveloped as Nyx or Pyro, you need some sort of self-sufficiency. And while you can say, okay, I'll just grab 200 SCU of supplies, having the ability to craft spare parts for your ship, a special environment hazard suit you didn't think of because you didn't know the planet was there, that's great. That's probably even necessary. And it might be a bit tinfoily, but I think most exploration vessels, most exploration ships will have one crafter on board. Mm-hmm. And I could see a crafting pod for the character you slot in.
It already has one.
You have a guy on board, and all this person has learned is all the different hazard suits you can possibly find. All of them. And you don't craft them because you can't store all of them, or you have to repair them because they get damaged, and so on and so forth. So crafting is simply necessary so you can move inside this enormous universe. I mean, the scale of this game will only grow. Even Stanton is a tiny system. Even Pyro is small.
Yeah,
we only get to the bigger systems, and I don't think we'll stay at 100 systems.
If this Yeah, if this game's going to survive longer than as long as it wants to, it can't stop at 100 systems. It's going to have to keep growing.
Yeah.
They need to start having systems that don't. They need auto-generated scripted systems that don't have any points of interest on them. Just basic systems that are undiscovered. That's an easy way for them to get new systems out there without having to go through all the design work of putting.
I mean,
But imagine that if it's like if they create like a system for players to find those undiscovered systems.
That was
They
the whole
talked about
some sort of
that.
some sort of
Chris
creation
said that
system, some
if
sort
you-
of Genesis system.
Yeah,
Of course, I don't have that linked up. The thing is, he did specifically mention that. Chris talked about that. He said, didn't he even say, Zark, something like the first person to discover it would get to name it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I heard that.
They on multiple occasions.
Sure. But is that one?
This is one goal for exploration, and if you discover an uncharted system and something you did not think of putting in your supplies hinders you on exploration or on exploring it, but you have a crafting station, you have a guy who knows the recipes, the blueprints, you have even some sort of mining laser on board, so you can, in the worst case, mine some basic materials to get this thing. This will be key.
The way to do that is the sensor system you need in your ship to discover that new system has to have some special stuff that you crafted or researched.
That too.
Right. And then when you get to a system where like a particularly weirdly volatile star, you need to craft new shield systems to be able to survive there. And maybe a slower, longer range quanta system because the system you discovered is particularly huge.
Yeah.
Or
modifications to things that you need to do. The Star Trek mumbo jumbo. Like the stuff you see the Enterprise, the Voyager, or DS9 crew do, or any other, the original Enterprise or the NX-1 or the Discovery.
Enterprise was only about reversing the polarity, so that's pretty easy.
Or the simple fact your supplies run out, but you got a rock on board. You can mine some iron. You can build more ammunition so you can explore the next cave and don't get eaten by Copians.
Okay, so what you're saying is it allows for more. It allows for more interesting interactions in the game beyond just what we already have.
It allows players to move further out from the infrastructure.
Okay. I will say, I don't think Star Citizen needs it, but I like how Darsh said it. It's Star Citizen doesn't need it, but Star Citizens do. And as Raider was talking about how like it gives you something to do, that is one of the things consistently throughout the years. I have been streaming Star Citizen and doing Star Citizen content for a very long time. One of the first things any new player who's interested in Star Citizen will ask is, what do you do? What is the point? What is the goal of Star Citizen? How do I win Star Citizen? And it's a sandbox.
Do not rage quit.
Yeah.
That's a fair response. It's a sandbox.
Yeah.
What you choose to do is up to you.
But as part of a sandbox is just a pit of sand. You need a bucket, a shovel, some plastic toys. You need that stuff, and that's what base building.
Great analogy.
To shape the sand.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that gives us the tools to build in this sandbox to whatever goals we want to set for ourselves. But in order to even get those goals to set up, we need those tools, and that's what these tools are. That's what it is. It's a tool for the sandbox.
If we just think about what great things the community already has organized, I can see multiple cities getting built by the community across organizations that have special protection status and whatnot, and people just go, hey guys, how about we build a city there? That's the idea, and people just say, hey, I'm gonna help you. I built this city block, those streets.
I've talked about for a while that like how actual towns exist in reality. One of the theories of why they were founded was because people banded together for protection. It was just you could fight off more people if you were living together rather than in your small village. If you had multiple villages together, it would be easier. And so that eventually became because of protection. I think that's what we'll see in Star Citizen as well. Is like where groups will come together for protection. If there's a big group that has a city, people will set up a settlement. People will say, hey, can I set up next to you so we'll protect you? And it's like, yeah, sure, just pay us a little bit and we'll protect you. And that will grow out, especially if it's viable for whatever reason. That's just the sort of things that I could see with Star Citizen. And that was only possible with crafting. Go ahead, Darsh.
Zarg, I was just gonna say, like all of those towns that you mentioned, if you look at them from a certain point of view, shaped like dicks.
Oh, all of them will be.
Not all of them. Some will be boobs.
They'll
or vaginuses.
yes,
Yes,
and they'll have
yes.
critical. They'll
But
fun names like Johnsonville.
There will all be, yeah, they will all be based on points of anatomy.
Yes, it'll be
Yes.
like Johnsonville.
Let's not limit our
we
imagination to only one part of the
We
anatomy.
citizens are all people of
Heavenly
culture.
Hills.
So obviously, we use anatomy as to let us inspire. That's called bioengineering. We let nature inspire our designs.
And as Jin points out,
I don't think that's what bioengineering is.
we full circled back to pineapples. And with that, perfect ending. Thank you for watching us. Make sure you check out, you can come join in our Discord and hang out with the league and myself and Zark. Check out my radar and follow Andy on Blue Sky to figure out when his. I'm sure you'll post updates on your YouTube channel that you're doing for Star Citizen there. Check out jrdf.sc to see all the work that Darsh does. Make sure you pick up their models.
Darionator.com for my non-JRDF stuff.
And if you enjoyed this, make sure you hit that follow button on Twitch. Subscribe to us on YouTube. But subscribe to the Captain's Table podcast YouTube. Find us up on Spotify. And you can join us live at twitch.tv/theastropub and the Captain's Table podcast, or youtube.com /at the Captain's Table podcast at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. We'd love to have you come join us because we're going to go into our After Dark, or since Darsh is here, After Darsh, where we take questions from the community. You're going to say something, Darsh?
I just realized I don't have pineapples on my link tree at darionator.com. I should fix that.
You should fix that. And with all that being said, thank you for watching. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.